You're probably reading a lot about entrepreneurship and business. But somewhere between the hype and the hustle culture posts, you're wondering which books actually stick with you. Which ones teach you something you can use tomorrow, not just something that sounds inspiring in the moment. Today we're looking at 5 business and entrepreneurship books that readers keep coming back to. Books that don't just tell you to dream bigger, but show you how to actually think differently about building something real. Number 5, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Let's start here, because this one changed how people actually build businesses. The core idea is simple but powerful. Instead of spending months planning the perfect product and then launching it, you build something small, put it in front of real customers fast, and learn from what they actually do. Eric Ries calls this the build, measure, learn feedback loop. You make something, you measure how people respond, you learn from that data, and you build again. The book argues that most startup failures happen because founders spend too much time in their heads imagining what customers want, instead of actually asking them. What makes this book stand out is that it's not theoretical. Ries worked at several startups and saw firsthand how much money gets wasted on features nobody asks for. He teaches frameworks like pivot and persevere, where you either change direction based on feedback, or you double down if the data supports it. This book is especially good for anyone starting something new, whether that's a business or a side project. If you've ever felt paralyzed by the need to make everything perfect before launch, this one rewires that thinking. Number 4, Good to Great by Jim Collins. Now this book answers a different question. It's not just about starting something. It's about why some companies make the leap from good to truly great, while others plateau. Jim Collins and his team studied companies over 30 years of performance data. They looked at businesses that beat the stock market by 3 times or more. And they found patterns that weren't obvious. One of the biggest ideas is the hedgehog concept. Collins observed that great companies find the intersection of 3 things: what they're deeply passionate about, what they can be the best in the world at, and what drives their economic engine. When a company finds all 3, something shifts. Another framework Collins teaches is the concept of level 5 leadership. These are leaders who are ambitious for their company, not themselves. They're humble, they hire people smarter than them, and they're ruthlessly disciplined about who sits in which seat on the bus. This book works well if you're running a business that's already moving, or if you're thinking long-term about what you're building. It's less about the startup phase and more about the transition from good execution to excellence. Number 3, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel has a very specific point of view, and 0 to 1 is him laying it out completely. He argues that most businesses are doing the same thing other businesses are doing, just slightly better. That's 1 to N growth. But real innovation is going from 0 to 1, creating something that didn't exist before. Thiel makes the case that competition is for losers. He means that if you're competing in a crowded space, you're always going to be squeezed on price and margins. But if you create something truly novel, you can set your own terms. One of the most useful frameworks in the book is the power law. Thiel argues that most of your results will come from a small number of your decisions. If you're running a company, maybe 3 or 4 hires matter more than the other 20. Maybe 1 or 2 products drive 90% of your revenue. Once you see this, you stop optimizing small things and focus on the few decisions that actually move the needle. This book is for people who want to build something genuinely different, not just incrementally better. If you're drawn to the idea of creating a new category instead of competing in an existing one, Thiel's thinking will reshape how you approach your business. Number 2, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Now we're shifting gears slightly. This isn't strictly a business book, but it's foundational for anyone making decisions in business. Kahneman won the Nobel Prize in Economics, and this book is his life's work on how we actually think. The core idea: your brain operates in 2 systems. System 1 is fast, intuitive, automatic. System 2 is slow, deliberate, analytical. When you're making a business decision under pressure, you're almost always in System 1. And System 1 is full of predictable errors. Kahneman teaches about cognitive biases like anchoring, where the first number you hear becomes the reference point for everything else. Or confirmation bias, where you seek out information that confirms what you already believe and ignore evidence against it. For entrepreneurs and business leaders, Understanding these biases is practical. If you know that anchoring affects price negotiation, you can control who names the first number. If you know about confirmation bias, you can build teams specifically hired to argue against your ideas. Readers often say this book makes them more aware of their own thinking. It doesn't make you a perfect decision maker, but it helps you notice when you're about to make a decision based on gut feeling instead of data. Number 1. The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Ben Horowitz is a venture capitalist, but before that, he founded Opsware and sold it to HP for $1.6 billion. So when he talks about hard things, he's earned the right. This book is brutal in the best way. It's not a step-by-step guide. It's more like war stories from someone who's been through the fire. Horowitz talks about the moments when everything goes wrong. When you're burning cash, your best people are leaving, and you're not sure if your company survives the next quarter. One of the most powerful concepts he introduces is the idea of the CEO's struggle. He argues that the CEO's job is to know where the company is going, but also to absorb all the stress and uncertainty so your team can focus on execution. You're alone in that. You can't let your anxiety infect everyone else. Another section that resonates with readers is his advice on delivering bad news. If your company is struggling, tell your team early and clearly. Ambiguity and silence create worse outcomes than hard truth. People respect clarity even when the message is difficult. This book is for anyone who's already building something and facing the reality that it's harder than you expected. It's not motivational, it's honest. Horowitz doesn't tell you everything works out. He tells you how to think when it doesn't. So what ties these 5 together? Each one is asking a different question. How do I start? How do I scale? How do I innovate? How do I think clearly? How do I lead through chaos? But they're all saying the same thing underneath. Building something real requires you to think differently than you did before. It requires unlearning some things. And it requires honesty about what's actually working. If you're going to pick one to start with, it depends on where you are. Starting something new, the lean startup. Running a good company and trying to make it great, good to great. Trying to create something nobody's seen before, 0 to 1. But honestly, if you read all 5, you'll have a foundation in how to think about business that most entrepreneurs don't have. Links to all these books are in the description. I'd love to know which one you pick up. Drop a comment if you've already read any of these and what stuck with you.